Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on February 17th, 2025, 2026. We'll try a year later, at approximately 8 p.m. PST. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide and paranormal adept because the tools we scrambled that badly. The tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the exact same philosophies I personally guide virtually every decision I make by. Now, with this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before I get into things, I do want to tip my hat to Storm, who is our primary moderator, usually hiding in the back to make absolutely certain that tech keeps running properly, and to keep an eye out so if we do end up with problem children in the chat room, they are removed before they become a serious problem. Then we have LA Moon in the room. She is our primary moderator in the house, and she's the one that helps keep conversation going and does the very important thing of watching my health. Because, let's face it, I've been known to die spontaneously. Fortunately, my blood, the downside is my blood pressure goes up, my heart stops. My heart stops, my blood pressure goes down, my heart starts again. Now, it kind of works out well. Well, sort of. I'm not sure about the well thing, but, and then we have Kara Ava in the house. And she is our moderator that keeps an eye on questions, that keeps a special eye out on the questions you guys pose to ensure that if I miss them, that she spots them. Now, here's the kicker to it. And this is why I ask people, put any questions in the chat room in all caps so I can find them. My eyesight is, politely put, failing, and I'm working with a small monitor. So, that said, Carrie Ava behind me here is she's my wife, my editor-in-chief, a member of my board of advisors. You get the idea? She watches for the missing questions, for the questions I missed, and she's 100% blind. Now, that said, we have Operation Shutdown. You are in the house with the gold. How you doing, Operation? Now, today we are discussing the art of personal attire. Now, setting your own personal image. Now, here's the real neat kicker to it. Ken Stockla, how are you? You are in with the silver today. Now, here's the kicker. I am no fashion aficionado. Okay. The way I look at it is this. When you're looking at portraying yourself in a certain fashion, you got to look at what society says. Okay, you really do. Now, this may be half my problem, is I look at what society says and go, don't really care. As long as I'm wearing clothing, I figure I'm ahead of the game. I won't get arrested. Okay, but pick what you desire to portray to people. Now, I considered upgrading my clothing, and getting into dress shirt, dress pants, that sort of thing before coming on air. And I have been told quite consistently that when you're looking at making an impression, if you're looking at going to work for somebody else or for yourself, go to work, even go to an interview, dressed as though you're ready to start work. If you're going to work and if you're applying for a job in an office, don't show up in greasy coveralls. If you're heading for work in a shop, I wouldn't recommend greasy coveralls, but certainly show up in coveralls. Do not worry about whether or not they're state-of-the-art or the high state of fashion. You look at what you're aiming at. Now, for me, I go this way. As long as I'm dressed, as long as I look neat, my clothing doesn't have holes in it, I'm comfortable with it. Okay? And the whole catch is when you look in the mirror, are you okay with what you see? Now, admittedly, I'm lazy, which is why half the time you find I'm not shaved. it's because I'm lazy. It's not because I like beards. Don't take that wrong, anybody that's got one. But decide what image you desire to put forth. For me, I'm not interested in impressing millionaires. Okay, I'm not interested in standing out above the people on the street. Aside from, and I've got nothing against either one. Well, in all fairness, I got something against all of them. But it's the same thing. Okay, we're not going to get into that right now. But when I take a look in the mirror, I go, okay, am I comfortable? And when you're looking in the mirror, ask yourself, do you like what you're wearing? Okay. I mean, I had a girlfriend years ago, and she showed up at my place. And bear in mind, this was a working model. She was a runway model. And she showed up in a mini skirt. And when she showed up, the first thing out of her mouth, well, I've got to change. I looked at her and says, why? And she goes, well, look at what I'm wearing. I says, and that doesn't answer the question. She goes, well, what if other people look at me? I said, look, if you're hanging onto my arm and they walk into traffic, that's a them problem. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Oh, LA goes, my dad was a ditch digger. True story. If someone would ask him for a job, he'd likely hire them if they were wearing work boots, jeans, t-shirt, and had a jacket. And that's just it. If you're going into work as a ditch digger, as a cleaner, as a construction worker, you don't have to be dressed in a three-piece suit. Yes, when I look at the other YouTubers that are on TV, a lot of them are dressed nicely, or they've got some sort of standardized image. Let's wear a t-shirt with a neat saying on it. I have considered that, and I am looking into a few of them, and I've never looked at t-shirts with sayings before, right? But there are a couple that I do quote quite regularly and wouldn't hurt to have them. But when you see that I've got them, and I don't know how long that'll be, when you see I've got them, they will be available for sale. Okay. That's just the reality behind it. But when you're looking at your own image, okay, let's start in the home. What you wear around the house. Well, LA goes, I walked into caregiving wearing scrubs and got an instant raise on my paycheck. Hired on the spot. Clothing will matter. If you walk into work going for an accounting job and you show up in torn jeans and a dilapidated shirt, you can bet your bottom dollar they're not hiring you. Okay. On the other hand, if you walk in dressed to the nines, this may well lead in your favor. Now, I had a buddy I went to school with. He wanted to make a statement. He was an artiste. And I kid you not, it depended on what day of the week it was and what his mood. I watched this same guy show up one day in a clown outfit. And he wanted to be an actor. One day he showed up in a clown actor and played the part. The next day he shows up in a three-piece suit. Okay. The third day he decides he's going to make a real shocking maneuver. He showed up in a knee-length skirt, right, and a blouse, complete with the tie with the bonnet. Now, he probably could have pulled it off a little better if he hadn't had a full beard and mustache.
Good for him, though.
Yeah. And bear in mind, this guy was absolutely 100% as straight as you could get. This was way back when I was in school. So the whole thing about, oh, are you happy? Which is literally when people started telling me people were gay, I looked at them and went, great, so they're happy. So what difference does it make? I missed a lot of the odds and ends. But when you're looking at your image, okay, ask yourself, what do you desire to see? Now, my hairstyle is simple. It's been the same way for 40 years, and I'm not about to change it. Okay. And it's a practical thing. Like I said, I'm lazy. My hair's been the same style since I was 20. Okay. And I'm not about to try and reorganize the hair follicles.
Well, and see, this works well too for you, Keith, because you know, if there are those out there who are self-employed, not working for themselves, or even as say independent contractors, where the job is a little more casual, and you don't necessarily have that dress code, and you feel more laid back, and you want to present that, absolutely go for it. I knew a flutist who I had in some instruction from a world-renowned flutist back in 2010, and I was very intimidated because of who he was, and even my flute instructor told me, he puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. Well, the funny thing is, after my first performance with him, my dad actually talked to me and said, he's actually dressed in a pretty laid back fashion. Here's what he's wearing. All of a sudden, I felt a little more like I could approach him. And so that kind of thing matters. Consider the face that you want to present to the people you're trying to approach.
You can go to extremes. And even like a friend of mine, and thank you very much for that, Kara. A friend of mine, years ago, we were at a house party, but it was a Halloween party. Half of the people at the party were EMTs. Okay. And there was an accident right outside the hospital, right outside our house. Right. Well, the EMTs in Halloween garb rushed outside. Unfortunately, that created chaos because the one EMT was dressed as a vampire that had just fed. Right. Another one was dressed as a military vet that had been shot, and they did bang up. They had absolutely bang up makeup on. And then, of course, the third one was dressed as a corpse. Now, I'll tell you, the EMT the real EMT had a bit of a problem trying to figure out who were actually victims and who weren't. Woo, you are in with the bronze. How you doing? But take a look at the image that you're aiming to portray. Now, the fact of the matter is, I considered the idea of upgrading my wardrobe. And then I got thinking, it falls under the same category as looking at the other side of it. When I looked at what I charge for consulting, I've been paid over $2,600 an hour. But there aren't that many people that have $2,600 an hour. Right. So I only charge $80 based on 50 years experience and over 100,000 clients. Now, that said, if I dress in a three-piece suit, I may certainly make the wealthy people, I may make them a little bit more inclined to talk to me. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which, I look at it going, they've got this brilliant idea that you've got to have the best of the best, and you got to wear it. Well, I don't know about you, but if I've got $1,000, okay, and I can buy a T-shirt for $1.50 and leave, the $999,000 in the bank, I'm wealthier than the guy that just spent $1,000 on an outfit. But that's my definition. So again, we have to go back to this thing we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, okay, about what do you consider success. Same thing applies to what you consider proper fashion.
Absolutely. I think, Keith, too, if you were to wear a three-piece suit and try to approach some of the people that you contact or that you are attempting to give the message to, again, I feel like for you, it would, in a way, close you off because it gives that impression of, oh, look at how high and mighty I am. And if that's not the face that you want to present to the people you're attempting to approach and give the message to, don't dress that way.
Well, I'm pretty certain in my case, I made it pretty clear. I really don't care what most people think of me. And that's not entirely true. Turns out half of my fighting of depression has been that issue. But here's the thing. You know, I look at the other YouTubers that are out there, and they've got thousands of people watching, right? And I used to get caught up in numbers, and it still bothers me to a degree. You know, I'm looking at billions of people sitting there talking about doing nice things, and and they're literally backing their actions up and saying, "Well, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're showing people." Problem is, they're not showing it. Now, I got really badly caught up in it. And what I came to the conclusion of was this. Okay. I came to the conclusion that I will set my limits where I have to at the bottom end and start making them happen. But I've been buying into certain things that have really held me back. And I'll tell you, I look at this personal attire thing going, part of my issue of not upgrading is literally because I desire to keep food on my table. And the clothing I'm wearing, yes, you may find it dated. Okay. If you did find it dated, make certain you find out who the shirt was dating. Because I could use some more pants to fit with it. But the reality is, I buy clothes when I have to, not when I desire them. Okay. Like I used to have, so I had 4 pair of pants, and I threw 2 of them out because they had holes in them. Well, I say I threw them out. I sent them off to a secondhand store that can deal with that sort of thing. The one thing that I did find is I will eventually upgrade, certainly. But first things first, get your feet on the ground. Decide what are you looking for in the way of appearance. Okay, what are you comfortable in? If you're not comfortable in a 3-piece suit that you have, or in a 3-piece suit or a slack suit for women, or a dress, doesn't matter. And personally, I don't care if guys wear dresses. I just won't. But if you're not comfortable in an outfit that has to be pressed and has to be, looking really smart all the time, do not buy into the idea that you got to get that, unless you're working in a profession that requires it. Okay. Now, granted, if you're working for a law firm, absolutely dress the part that the law firm says. This is our dress code. Okay. However, if you're running your own legal department and you desire to show up at work in jeans and a t-shirt, that's the image you put out. Okay. And when you start looking at it, people will say, you've got to look like you're worth $1 million in order to actually put that kind of price down. Well, you see the way I'm dressed. Okay. When I got paid $2,600 an hour, okay, I was dressed in something similar to this. So I got news for you. You don't have to be dressed to be respected. You have to be respectful to be respected. I've listened to millionaires for decades, and they'll sit there and they'll talk to you as though, well, you don't look like you got any money, so you're beneath me. I walked into a suit store, okay, and that's what they sold, was literally 3-piece suits. I was in one of those moods. I went in looking to see if I could find one. Well, I was dressed like this. The 2 guys who were there were dressed to the nines. They were having coffee on the table, which is fine, but they looked up at me, looked me up and down, and then turned back to their coffee. They didn't even say hi. Who we got here? We have Charlene. How you doing? Glad you could join us, Charlene. And I do believe you've got honorable mention. We got Operation with Gold. We have Cam with Silver. We have Woo with Bronze. And yes, Charlene, welcome aboard. You are in here with honorable mention. Now, bear in mind, every single person in this chat room is of equal value. They don't have all the same responsibilities. My moderators, they're there to make certain that other people behave. And needless to say, they follow that line. The rest of you have to watch what you're doing. Now, I will tell you, a few years back, I had somebody come in, and there was a lot of cross chatter in this room. Okay, not in this specific room, but there was a lot of cross chatter. And this guy walks in, and he comes into the room, and the first words out of his mouth were a derogatory comment about the disrespectful people in this room. And, before I had a chance to say anything, because bear in mind, I encourage cross chatter, because the idea is I'm not God. In my world, I am, and I do have the last say here, but I don't have all the answers. Lord knows if I did, I wouldn't fight depression my entire life. But when this guy walked in and made that comment, virtually everybody in the chat room jumped on the guy and told him to politely get out. He wasn't welcome. I never had a chance to say anything before he was gone. But with you guys, the support and the encouragement I get from you guys is literally why I am still here. Okay. I mean, Kara can tell you I have argued with myself and talked to her about just shutting the whole 9 yards down because I'm not seeing an impact. Yes, I hear from some of you, from a great many of you, that the information I'm providing gives people a way of looking at things. The reality is you all have the answer in your own head. You just may not know it.
And that being said, Keith, could you give our viewers who may be watching at a later point, or maybe those who aren't able to see it, can you let them know and remind them how they can get a hold of you?
That's the easy part. If you look at the top of the stream, you'll find a link there to buymeacoffee.com/InnerVoiceJ. Now, I've currently got 8 books on the mark on that site that I've written. 3 self-help, 2 children's, 1 UFO reference, and 2 novels. I've got a 4th self-help in hard copy here. Okay, and I'm still looking for the soft copy version to pop up on site. But we'll get to that as soon as we can. We're going out tomorrow to see about that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And also, sorry, Keith, just a reminder for those who we always have to give our little like and subscribe thing. Ding. Well, it really does help that you guys share the message and that we can get the impact that we're looking for. So absolutely share, like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, all that jazz. And we really appreciate that you're here with us.
Yeah, and in fairness, and thanks so much for that, Kira. In all fairness, I actually appreciate it way more than I know how to say. The reality is that when I first started these streams, I figured if I had 3 people following me, I figured I was ahead of the game. I'm looking at it right now. We got 717, and last year, I got told by one marketing specialist that I needed to cut my streams and my sessions down to 3 or 4 minutes at a pop, and just do shorts.
Yeah, short form content.
Because I'm paraphrasing, but what they told me was people don't have the attention span to watch. Now, I'm not exciting. I'm really not. Okay. I'm kind of like as exciting as watching paint grow. Watching grass grow. But the reality of it is that's me. And I look at the videos other people do, and there's all this flash and bother. I've been told I should get a better backdrop because what's behind me is not appealing. Well, the good news is this. This is as close to anybody's going to get invited into my bedroom. Yes, it's my office, but it's also my bedroom. And there's only one person that gets invited in here. Okay, well, technically there's 3. Because my boys, if they need to talk to me and this is where I am, they'll get invited in. But the reality of it is, I am that I am. Okay? And, you know, when you're looking in the mirror, when you're deciding how you desire to present yourself, I will warn you, people absolutely, hey, Samo, how you doing? Another one of our moderators just showed up. Oh. You know, the reality of it is this, okay? When you get up in the morning, I will warn you, if your hair is all over Hex Half Acre, unless like me, you're trying to emulate Einstein, or you got your finger stuck in a light socket, you know, either way, your hair's going to be all over the place. And there's Kitty Cattywhack. How we doing? You know, one of the things that we got to remember is when you look in the mirror, are you content with what you look at? Now, I'm lazy, which is why I don't shave all the time. Okay, but never again, unless I really stumble across somebody that's good, will I go to a hairdresser. Right, well, I just go to a barber to get my hair cut periodically. But never again am I going to make the mistake of asking them to trim my sideburns. Because I'll tell you, if what they do is called trimming, I'm worried if I ever tell them to cut my sideburns. Because I've asked the last three from 3 different sites, you know, from 3 different businesses to tidy my sideburns up. And what they've turned around and done is cut them off completely. So what are they going to cut if I ask them to cut my sideburns? You know, I'm thinking Cuban necktie, and this is probably a bad outcome. Jeff Garvey, how we doing? Glad you could join us.
Oh my god. Sorry, I just saw Philip's content. Philip, you're not the first person to call him Einstein. I think that's great.
You know, and there's something, and this is one of those really off-topic similarities, okay, or coincidences, if you will. Einstein failed grade 3.
Wow, we have lots of new people.
Okay, people, but... I was diagnosed mentally retarded, and then before I got to school, and then graduated on the honor roll. Now, I don't know if this means that, well, if you're really bright, you should be mentally retarded, but if that were the case, there'd be a lot of people out there. And I know telling people they're mentally retarded is apparently bad. Surface, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Just trying to see. Yeah, I'm missing a couple of... Boy, we have an interesting string of people coming in. You know, right now, guys, we are sitting with 16 in the room. Now, this isn't a record, but it's certainly better than the 3 that I've been getting. You know, actually in here we get about 10 a lot of the time. But when you're looking in the mirror and you're asking yourself, what do I desire to portray? Now, I've got to be careful, and Kira can vouch for this one. People ask me how I'm doing, and I'll tell them how I'm feeling. It's very seldom, oh, I feel great. You know, usually it chalks up to I'm breathing. You know, which I realize that's kind of a depressing outlook. Okay. Unfortunately, I never learned to filter very well. Well, actually, I did. I filter my coffee all the time. And that's about the extent of it. Uh-oh. This is Kitty Catty. Hey, what are you seeing about those top 3? I think some of us resemble that remark. Now, I'm a little blonde. You can tell, at least my hair's light. And I've got to ask, which top 3 are we referring to?
I should know, but like I said, I'm having a hard time keeping up. It's great, you guys.
But the fact of the matter is, from my standpoint, it's very simple. You know, I look at the world that I'm living in, and I finally came to the conclusion there is no way I'm going to fit into this planet. Okay, the physical reality of it is my brain isn't built the same way. Okay, this does not make me better than anybody, but it does make me very different. Okay. Not a problem, Kitty Catty. You know, I tend to miss a fair chunk of things, unfortunately. And I do have an appointment set for the 23rd to get new glasses. So I'll be able to actually see. Uh-oh. Yeah. Whoops. Surface goes, we're feeling comfortably numb to the world we inhabit. Oh, there we go. LA goes, Storm has blonde hair gone to silver. Mine is dark brown with a silver shot. The sad part is, from my standpoint, I was born with a full head of black hair. It started going gray when I was 16. It was kind of comical that way. And when I saw something here, Jeff goes, Keith, you're an evolutionary outlier. Yeah, embrace that. Yeah, this is something I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that, Jeff. There is no way I can fit into this. As a matter of fact, I used to consider myself a freak of nature. Okay. And then my first wife looked at me one day and goes, yeah, Keith, you're a freak of nature. Like the platypus. I always saw it as a negative, but then I was raised to believe it was all a negative. When you look at how you are what your attire is, bear in mind, we are not talking about just what your clothing looks like. We are talking about the way you wear your hair, if you have it adorned, if you've got pins, barrettes, hair ties, a bun in your hair, doesn't matter. If you're going to do a bun in your hair, I recommend personally whole wheat. But the reality of it is this. Even your bearing will portray what image you're putting out. And this is what you got to look at. Now, I'd love to say I don't have to use a cane. And technically, there are days I really don't have to. From my standpoint, it really boils down to this. I've got a bad leg. That's the way it is. Okay. When you look at attire, do your best to portray what you look at, what you look like, what you desire other people to see. Now, here's the thing. My cane is technically collapsible, the one I use. It cost me absolutely nothing. Well, that's not entirely true. I traded a hand-carved one my father had built for a collapsible metal one. I spent $850 on a cane, on a custom-made cane myself, and it was broken within a month. Now, I don't blame the cane builder. Okay, I blame the airport because they're the ones that broke the thing. So will I go out and spend more money on a cane? I wouldn't hold my breath. Granted, it makes noise, but it works out conveniently. Because the cane I carry, that I walk with, Kira can hear it. Okay? There's a very distinctive sound to it. And it's not like I go out of my way to go, oh, I'm making too much noise, so I'm going to walk a little quieter. My dad was dangerous. He used a cane. He also walked very softly. But when you're taking a look at what you're doing and what your world goes, oh, is that a good thing? I just about read that wrong, Ken. Ken goes, I had a call from one of your locals today. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But rest assured, they can't possibly be mine unless they happen to be related to me. And then they don't belong to me anyway. But hopefully the call went well. But take a look at the image you're putting on, that you're portraying. If you desire to be treated decently, the 3 karmic laws at the beginning of the chat room, okay, are extremely important. At least I believe they're at the top of the chat room.
Can you remind people what those are?
Oh, yeah.
Please.
These are the only 3 laws I pay solid attention to. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Okay, those are the only three. They cover a lot of ground. But where it comes to your attire, make absolutely certain. Well, yeah, make absolutely certain that you're putting forth the image you desire to put forth, not what everybody else does. Okay, one of the biggest things that we got to look at when we're looking at self-image is, do you feel inspired by you? Okay, not do you feel inspired by anybody else, or are you leading somebody down the road? Okay, I intend, and my intention is to be certain. I see, Ken. My intention is to be certain that I am talking about what I personally do. These are the steps I'm taking. And therefore, if you haven't got a better path to follow, if you haven't got one that's working, okay, then the one I'm using works for me. Yes, I am still to this day fighting depression. Okay, some days I get very close to giving in and just saying scrap it. Like I did finally about 6 months ago, maybe a little longer. Finally came to the conclusion, there's no question about it. I am in severe depression and have been for years. Okay, you wouldn't necessarily know it by talking to me on the street. And before any genius out there comes to the conclusion, never have I ever been suicidal. I came close to killing myself one day, but that was because of curiosity. Okay, and had nothing to do with what I was wearing. But like I tell people have got to learn to wear what they will. There's a couple of boundaries. I told Kira myself, as well as several other people. If you don't like what I'm wearing, pick something different. Keep in mind, I don't wear pink. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't wear pink, and salmon is not an acceptable pink color to me. And 2, I don't wear skirts or dresses, including kilts. Okay, other than that, I'm pretty open. But the fact of the matter is that when you're looking at your self-image, the only person you really should be focusing on. Ken goes, I find sunshine helps with depression. Yeah, well, I don't like leaving my house because there's too many people out there. And that kind of supersedes the sunshine thing. But I do agree with you, which is why I'm usually the one that tells Kira we're going for a walk. Okay, because for me, I can stay in my house and hide. And as for sunshine, well, that's a wonderful little Pekingese I know. Pomeranian, sorry. Yappy as all get out and not great for depression.
That's Keith, though. For me personally, I find that it helps a lot. If I don't get like 20-30 minutes out in the sunshine, I tend to be a lot more depressed and just not in a very good mood. And the only reason I know that is because Keith has made sure that I managed to get out of the house. So yeah.
See, I don't work with the sunshine that well because, well, whether I'm in the shadows, in daylight, in sunlight, in rain, doesn't matter. I'm usually grumpy. You wouldn't know it from being here, but just talk to the people that know me well.
Surface. Surface says, perhaps take some magic mushrooms or embrace your genome. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I won't touch magic mushrooms. They got flashbacks that I don't desire to have. And I did try the route of being addicted to cocaine and marijuana. Although marijuana, I find it difficult to call it being addicted to. Cocaine, I was. Marijuana, it was the air I was breathing. As in, if I was conscious, I had a joint in my hand. Fortunately, I tended not to have a joint in my hand when I was going to sleep. Ken, in case you hadn't noticed, My other half is sitting right beside me. Because if I've got another half other than Kira, there's an issue. I don't know who they are. But, when I look at it, when you're looking at self-image, decide what you desire to portray. Now, I admit, I've got to pay more attention to the idea of actually running a comb through my hair. I mean, I run a comb through my hair every morning. It looks kind of like this, and that's pretty much where it ends. I've got a comb. I'm just lazy. Yeah. Jeff goes, mushroom tea concentrate works well. Probably. Mind you, this morning, before I hit noon, I had 6 cups of coffee in me. And that's if I was looking at regular coffee. We just won't count how much I actually went through. But the fact of the matter is, I am still plugging, moving forward as best I can. One of the nice things now, I'm going to assume, Ken, that you're not aware of this. Kira's in the chat room, and much as she's blind, she can actually read everything that's written. Yeah, Jeff, I used to have a plant. It was called a croton, right? And I'll tell you, the guy was a coffee addict. One of the things I did find with self-image is when you get up in the morning, and this is why I tell people, I wrote the book, Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. As soon as you wake in the morning, get up. As soon as your eyes settle enough, you can walk. Or if you happen to be blind, as soon as your other senses kick in, get up, go to the washroom, do what you have to. Then come back, get your bed made, get dressed, okay? And then leave the bedroom, okay? The reason for this is it sets the stage on the right, it sets you on the right path. Having accomplished the very basic necessities, and then, you overcome the most annoying, the most difficult challenge you'll ever face, your own stubborn streak. Then you accomplish the most annoying task, as near as I can understand, that anybody has to deal with. Okay, and that's making your bed. Oh Lord. I like to talk to my plant too. She's asking for coffee grounds again. She had 10 babies since I've had her. Now I gotta ask, who was it that was saying that? No, go back up.
It was LA.
LA. LA, I gotta ask, what type of plant do you actually have that produces that much? Or is it just you've had her that long? I know I've got to get plants in here. But the other thing about self-image is it's not just about what you're wearing. Your personal attire is what you're wearing, how you're carrying yourself, any accoutrements that you're carrying that you're bringing with you. Philip, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I got told one day about coffee. You drink your first cup of coffee just to get your brain in gear. Every other coffee is so you can tolerate the people out there, which might give you a hint when you realize I'm drinking anywhere from 50 to 60 cups of coffee a day.
Yeah, and I just drink coffee so I can tolerate Keith. And I'll get hit later for that, I'm sure.
No, I'll just get a drink of something stronger. I do have stronger stuff here, but Fonzie was cool. Yeah, Jeff goes, Fonzie was cool. And, Fonzie from Happy Days, absolutely. I still like the day that Richie was. He came home from party, and he was staggering. And Dad goes, "Were you drinking?" I only had an itsy bitsy drink, and he's holding up a finger hand the size of a shot glass. And Dad looks at me and goes, "And just how many itsy bitsy drinks did you have?" Richie goes, "I had 72. Now, I will tell you, even for me, that was a bit much, although I did drink one day in one sitting 72 ounces of Schloss Latterheim. I will, and that's a white wine, by the way. Never again will I touch the stuff. 72 ounces, I didn't even get a buzz. But when you're looking at your personal attire, the whole catch to it is take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, do you personally feel inspired by that? If the answer is yes, then you're on the right path.
Just a quick interjection. Looks like LA answered your question, and she says that she thinks the plant she has is a wandering Jew.
Oh, okay. I know a lot of wandering Jews, and most of them are confused. Oh, wait a minute. That was wrong.
That was wrong.
Yeah, I used to have what was it called? I used to have a polis, but I had a number of plants way back. But when I had my stroke in 2018, my boys were a little more concerned with whether I was going to live than they were on whether or not to water my plants. Yeah, Jeff goes, I had a roommate who could drink an 80 of hams in one day. Now, I don't know what hams is. I know I didn't drink it because I don't know what it was. Okay. I say I drank, a 24 of rye regularly. Every night. But I have no idea how much else I drank because I didn't track it, but I got it all for free, so I didn't really care. But when you look at personal attire, the real catch to it is oh, well, that explains why I don't know what it is. Is anything like it? I gotta ask Jeff, is Ham's beer anything like Rainier? Because I'll tell you, if it is, I can understand why he drank 60 a day or 80 a day. But, the reality of it is this. When you look at personal attire, the number one rule of thumb, are you happy with what you see in the mirror? Where are we?
Oh, Jeff says it's close to right here.
It's close to, yeah. Yeah, I used to party with people that drank high test like it was flaming water. But Surface has made a comment up here a little earlier. Where was it? Oh, I've let go of Earth-based relationships after learning about it. And then he goes down. It's Earth-interested galactic AI, an observer. I'm not sure where to go with that one, but I will tell you. The fact of the matter is, I look at Earth. Now, my connection to Earth is, shall we say, a little unique. Okay? And that is not a little eunuch.
That was just bad.
I know. Now, what?
Just looking at what Sam said here. Sam says if he would have been a drinker, he would have been very good at it. He says he's lucky he didn't take to alcohol.
Yeah, no doubt. For me, it was simple. I knew I met an absolute 100% total stranger with alcohol and drug issues. So I dove into her world and pulled her out and then quit. Joe, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And we are looking at, yeah, we've been holding a solid 16 today, which is really nice. But, the real big thing where it comes to image, and this is something I've got to get on top of. I'll get up in the morning, and the last thing I worry about is whether I comb my hair. Because like I said, there's my comb. Like, that's all there is to it. I have one. I just don't bother with it most of the time.
Wow. 2 new people, looks like, just popped in.
Oh, nice.
We have someone named Dreamer who sends us love from Canada.
Dreamer, how you doing? Glad you could join us.
And we will have a Joe Monica, looks like.
No, Joe's not new. Joe's been here for years. He just doesn't get in here as often as we'd like.
Well, yeah, when I say new people, I just mean new to the chat.
And just a real quick heads up again, guys. Yeah, it's showing right on the screen there. Absolutely, do like and subscribe. We'd love to have you on board. The reality is, I am a firm believer, and this is the biggest message I can spread that I'm aware of, that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you're a millionaire, a pauper, a criminal, a saint. Is there a difference?
I'm sorry, I was distracted.
Oh, between criminals and saints.
Oh, I don't think I'll get involved in that.
But, the reality of it is, we have a world that we're living on, and all of us are here, so we might just as well do something with it. But when we're looking at the personal attire, the real key to making it work is find what you're personally content with. Are you happy with what you see?
And if you're not, make the changes. Even if it's something small, like shaving or combing your hair in a different way or wearing a different color shirt than you normally wear. It applies to the same things that Keith has been talking about all along, really.
Ultimately, it does. The fact of the matter is, I've got to do something with mine. I know that. But my problem isn't what I'm wearing. My problem is the way I'm looking at the world. It's got to be altered. And that's based on my own observation, not based on anybody else's.
We are down to 7 minutes. Just
yeah. I saw that, Woo. You don't get away with it that easy. No, they are not being removed. I told Kira when I first met her that I will shave. I don't have an attachment to the beard and mustache. And I'm pretty certain this ties to the fact that my father had heavy sideburns his whole life until the last week before he died. Okay. I'm pretty certain that's where the attachment is. But like I told Kira, they're not going. Yeah, Philip goes, be sure to ask first, though, before you shave someone. That might be an idea. It's like I used to get told, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. Eternity, how you doing? Glad you could join us.
Oh, hey. Yay, Eternity. You're usually in first through the gate. You're late today. Hope you're doing okay. Also, Joe Monk, sorry, I mispronounced your name. I'm using a screen reader and a braille display, and I didn't use the display to verify your name. My apologies.
Yeah.
Look at that. The pork chops give you wisdom. Okay, I guess that's why everybody likes them.
Well, you go back to the 18th century, and I told you I'm way out of time. But back in the 18th century, the sideburns that they called pork chops, which I never understood because they don't look like pork chops. And if you got pork chops that have that much hair on them, throw them out.
Seriously. But we are down to 5 minutes. Just so you're aware.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, before we run into a snag here, Friday, where is Friday? Friday, right there. Friday, we are going to be dealing with the Vulcan homeworld. And yes, Vulcan is a planet inside our current solar system. And yes, NASA knows about it. Okay. Then on Saturday, we're going to be looking at alien abduction and its purpose. Sunday, why do people seem to care less and less? Monday, we're going to look at financial debt organization. And then on Tuesday, we're going to take a look at household finances and your children. And no, that does not mean you can go selling your children. But with that in mind, we will be back again tomorrow. No, we will not. We will be back on Friday. And for those of you that do come in for a day in the office, I'm doing my best to get that back on track. But I'll tell you, fighting depression takes its toll. Now, where are we? With this all in mind, okay, I do have to say thank you so very much for sharing your time with us. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you again on Friday. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.